Hey, welcome to Luxury in Moderation, where we appreciate the finer things in life without going overboard. I hope everyone had a wonderful end of the year and a happy new year. And here's to hoping that this new year will be better than the last. And for my very first video of 2022, I thought I would start out with a very important question, and that would be a Chanel classic flap or an Hermes BIRKIN. So in today's video, we are going to compare these two styles in 6 categories, which I have outlined for myself in terms of how I've used them and found them to be. And at the end, you will have a verdict for which one I think is better. But before we get started, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Joanne, and every week I upload videos about luxury handbags and other luxury lifestyle products. So make sure you like this video and subscribe and keep on watching to hear my thoughts on the Chanel Classic Flap versus the Hermes BIRKIN. As I mentioned, I broke down the Chanel Classic Flap and the Hermes BIRKIN into 6 different categories, and we will end with the most subjective one, I think. But of course, it should go without saying that all of this is my own opinion. This is how I use the bag, how I feel like they fit into my lifestyle. So if you have anything to add, please comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. But let's jump into what styles I am actually comparing and the sizes. So here I have my Chanel Classic Flap in the medium size. This is in a navy blue and silver hardware. And while I have the Chanel Jumbo as well, which is more the size of the Hermes BIRKIN 30 that I have here, I thought that these 2 sizes out of the BIRKIN and the Classic Flap would be relevant in terms of they are both the medium size. So this is the medium Classic Flap. This is the BIRKIN 30. Not the 25, not the 35. They're both like down the middle sizes for each of the styles. So if you were to get one of these styles, my thought process was to get the middle size first. Just in terms of sizes, they're not going to be similar at all. And I will have a capacity section, which we will go into the size a little bit more. I do plan on doing a more in-depth follow-up video now that I've had the BIRKIN for about 5-6 months and I've actually used it. There are some wear and tear details and other specifics I want to get into. So I will have a video dedicated to reviewing the BIRKIN 30. So in this one, we're just going to do a more general comparison. I've had the Classic Flap for a couple more years than I've had the BIRKIN, but I haven't used it that much, so I would say that usage-wise, they're pretty similar. But let's get into, first of all, the price, because that is the most objective factor. So starting with, something that no one can really argue, the price of the Chanel Classic Flap medium size since July 2021, I believe, is $7,800 US. For the BIRKIN 30, I bought this late last summer around August 2021, but the price does change depending on the leather and the hardware that you get. I got this in the Epsom leather in the gold hardware, and it was $10,505. So in the price category, I think it's pretty fair to say that the BIRKIN is more expensive than the Chanel Classic Flap. So let's give that round to the Chanel Classic Flap. Moving on to capacity, it is again very obvious that the Chanel Classic Flap in the medium size is much smaller than the BIRKIN 30. I'm thinking that the BIRKIN 25 will be more of a similar size to the medium size Classic Flap, but I don't have one. I'm sure that there's dimensions somewhere online you could look up. But for my specific needs, I do tend to like to bring a lot of things. So for example, when I go out, I have my wallet, and then, my phone, my keys, all of these are small things that would be able to fit into the Classic Flap, right? So honestly, it can fit the essentials. Right now I have stuffing paper inside. But when it comes to some other needs that I have, such as my sunglasses, and this is a pretty big case, I will admit that. But also very importantly for me, I like to bring a small cardigan because I do get cold easily. And even though this is not a big cardigan at all. It can scrunch up pretty small. Like, there is no way I would be able to fit this cardigan in the classic flap along with my wallet and keys and phone. So when I bring my classic flap out, I do have to hand carry a cardigan. And of course, in the BIRKIN 30, I can easily fit it along with everything else. I could probably fit another bag in here if I needed to. Of course, it does get a little bit heavier because of that, but for my needs, I do like having the bigger capacity. So in terms of capacity for my basic going out needs, I would have to give that round to the BIRKIN 30. Moving on to wear and tear. As I mentioned, I have had the classic flap for a few more years, but I haven't used it as much, and honestly I've been using the BIRKIN as much as I can, so I've been able to see the wear and tear on both, and I think they're both comparable in terms of how much I've used them. For the Chanel, just looking at pre-loved photos, I feel like the biggest threat to wear and tear is that the cushions can get deflated. So mine are pretty still like puffy, and they look, you know, soft, and I think that over time that will be a clear indicator of, you know, how old and used the Chanel classic flap is. But another thing I've noticed is that it can get like squished. So this might have been when I packed it for travel or just regular use and having it under my arm and kind of like pressing down on it. I can see that, you know, the creases here, it's not really like straight. It's going to crease not perfectly, and it does show that it is not new anymore. But everything else I feel like is pretty well off. I do try to notice the wear and tear on the corners a little bit more. So I feel like this corner is a little bit more deflated already than like this corner. All the other corners still look fine to me. I think it's just maybe the way that I wear this bag, maybe this corner gets rubbed the most, you know, when I have it under my arm and it like hits other people or whatever as I'm walking. But because of its small size, I do feel like I'm able to protect it more from, you know, the bumps and bruises that it can get when it's out. So actually the size does help keep it a little bit more safe. And then all the stitches are still pretty much intact, you know, up here. And a lot of it, the seam is on the inside, so you can't actually see the stitches. The stitches for the quilting all look fine. So I'm actually pretty happy with the way that this has worn and not seeing a lot of visible issues in this time. On the other hand, my BIRKIN 30, even though I've only had it for less than 6 months, it's worn a lot more than I expected it, to be honest. So kind of going into that issue of size, when I wear this, usually on the crook of my arm, because it's so big and wide, it tends to hit, you know, other people if I'm in a crowd, or if I'm not careful, I could like turn around and smash into a wall. And so I feel like the bigger size does have it exposed more to, you know, wear and tear elements. So I take note of if the corners look okay every time I'm back from being out with it. Another thing is that it does have more hardware. So even though there's the chain straps all along, it's really small surface area, whereas this one, there's like the big gold hardware on the singles and in the middle. I haven't taken off the tape of the middle and the right single yet, but for this single, which I did take the tape off, it has scratched pretty badly. I think it's just due to this gold hardware piece right here that holds it in place. It has light scratches on it already. Another thing that I've noticed is that the stitching, the white contrast stitching that I have on this Cillier style, there's fluff coming off of it. So, you know, the stitching is made out of, you know, thread and fibers, and I can see fibers starting to come out, you know, whether it's because I've rubbed it and You know, it's not a huge deal because obviously the stitching is still fine and the rest of the fibers are still holding strong, but there are some little fibers that are coming out all the time. And again, I will go into a lot more detail when I do my in-depth review of the BIRKIN 30, but it just surprised me how much this has worn, especially with the Epsom leather, which is supposed to be very hard wearing, and I do know I'm clumsy, and that's why I didn't want to go with a super soft leather. It's still like, I can see where it's been scratched already, which I was pretty alarmed with the first time, and now I'm kind of getting used to the fact that it's not as hard wearing as I thought it would be, and that's just, you know, how the leather is, and, you know, nothing can remain perfect forever, especially when I believe that, you know, luxury should be used. So in summary, I think in terms of wear and tear, the classic flap is doing better than how the Hermes BIRKIN does. So this round goes to the Chanel Classic Flap. Now going into some of the more subjective categories, something that is very important to me when I use my bags is accessibility. So when I'm out shopping and needing things in and out of my bag, I like it to be very easy for me to access things in my purse. And it's pretty obvious that the Chanel Classic Flap, it is going to be harder to access things versus the BIRKIN 30, which I do keep open. So I'm not going to ever secure the top flap. I do keep it open like this. Actually, most of the time, I keep the singles out so that they're just flopping out like this, and I keep the sides pretty wide. So yes, it's not a lot of security, but it's always in the crook of my arm, and if I ever need anything, I can just go in and grab it when I'm checking out, paying. It's very easy. Whereas with the Chanel Classic Flap, you have to twist the turn lock. And then, of course, there's the second flap, so the double flap structure also makes it a little bit more difficult to open and access the actual pocket inside. Oftentimes when it's on my shoulder, and you know, it's very easy and smooth to undo the turn lock, I will give you that. But after lifting that up, then I have to lift up the second flap in order to then figure out, you know, what do I need in here? Sometimes I'll have to, you know, like take it off my shoulder if it's like really buried in there. So for me, accessibility is very important, and for that, I will have to give it to the Hermes BIRKIN. Next, we have style. So again, this is a very subjective category where I feel the Chanel style is a lot fancier or formal than the BIRKIN. So the BIRKIN, especially in the 30 size, is more like a workhorse bag. You know, it wasn't really meant to go to evening parties or really formal events. You know, James BIRKIN made it because she needed to travel, right? So you put this on a plane and it's not like an evening clutch. And for that reason, it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles on it. The only hardware is here to be a functional clasp and not the embellishment or anything like super stylish or glamorous. And then oftentimes I actually carry my BIRKIN backwards, because then if you don't know, you don't know, and other people really can't recognize like, oh, this is a very expensive bag. It just looks like, honestly, there's a ton of similar looking bags with the top handle and, you know, decoration on the side. So the BIRKIN is a much more casual bag for me. With the Chanel Classic Flap, just the fact that the handle is chains, it looks like jewelry, and I think it's meant to look like jewelry. Coco Chanel wanted women to feel pretty and fancy, even though, you know, this is just a regular bag. So even though my hardware in the Chanel Classic Flap is silver, and I feel like silver to me is a more casual hardware than gold, it still looks like fancier jewelry when I take it out. So for example, I have a very simple outfit today. I have very light fabric blue pants, so blue to match the Chanel and a very simple V-neck striped t-shirt. But even then, I feel like this outfit, you know, I don't look like I match with the Chanel Classic Flap, because the Chanel Classic Flap is just a little bit dressier, and I wouldn't be comfortable or as comfortable wearing it with such a casual outfit. Of course, this is all subjective, and you can wear your Chanel Classic Flap however you like. But for me, like, I even feel like the Birkin goes with this casual outfit better than the Chanel Classic, because, you know, it's very plain. Again, it's not, you know, a lot of embellishment or anything like that. So I actually think that this bag, the Birkin, is more casual. And for me, I usually dress very casually, and even though sometimes I do like to get a little bit more dressed up and carry my Birkin and feel a little bit fancy, I feel like the Birkin can be fancy or casual versus the Chanel Classic Flap, which I feel like I can't dress as casual. So for this round, I'm going to give it to the Hermes Birkin. And finally, my last category is called Appeal. And I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because, again, this is a very subjective category. Everyone can have their own opinion. For me, the Hermes Birkin is more appealing to me than the Chanel Classic Flap at the moment. So I will say that, you know, as I've been interested in luxury and I've had my eye on the Chanel Classic Flap and I really wanted to own one, the Chanel Classic Flap was like the ultimate icon of luxury for me. It was the quilting, that iconic status, the iconic CC, like the handles were beautiful. And that is absolutely what I thought when I bought my medium flap. And then I went on to buy the jumbo, which again, it was all the same features, the quilting. It is a luxurious bag for sure. But once I had my classic flap and I had it for a couple years, and then I kind of moved towards a different target, and that target turned out to be Hermes, the Hermes culture, the Hermes Birkin. Now, when I go out and I am at a nice venue, my eyes light up when I see another Birkin versus when I see another classic flap, if that makes sense. I think in my current mindset, it's about the Hermes versus the Chanel. But even when I think about Chanel, and I've been very fortunate this past month to be in Singapore, where there is a very dense population of people who really like luxury. So I can see a lot of luxury bags in a very fancy mall in a very short time. The classic flap is not as exciting to me right now for some reason. Like, especially since Chanel is coming out with all these new styles now, like the seasonal styles with, you know, the pearl here where you can adjust the length. Even the boy bag, I think, is a little bit more unique and exciting than the classic flap. Like, I feel like if this was a chevron print, that would be a little bit more exciting or interesting to me, even though I still, of course, know that this is a very beautiful bag, and when I touch it, it feels very luxurious. This caviar leather and the chains, again, it looks very nice. It's a little bit boring for me. I feel like the Birkin, it's for sure a status symbol that is exciting to me, and it can go with a lot more everyday things that I wear all the time, and I'm very, you know, curious to see how other people are wearing and using their Birkins. So for this round, in this moment where I feel like I'm starstruck with the Hermes culture and the Hermes bags a little bit more than Chanel, I'm gonna give it to the Hermes Birkin. So what do you guys think? As a quick roundup, the categories of price and wear and tear I'm giving to the Chanel Classic Flap. But in all the other 4 categories, which includes accessibility, capacity, style, and appeal, I'm giving to the Hermes Birkin. So let me know if you guys agree or not. I'm very curious to hear your feedback on this video. Again, I know it can be a little bit controversial and I'm a little bit scared to hear what you guys have to say, but these are my thoughts on the Chanel Classic Flap versus the Hermes Birkin. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it a little bit helpful. If you are considering whether you would like to go for a Classic Flap or a Birkin, of course, in terms of getting these bags, it's a very different level. I did not go into that when comparing the two today. But if you would like any more tips or information, please let me know. I would love to help you guys out. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next video. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye!